Tonight, we're learning more about the two victims killed in yesterday's shocking series of shootings in the GTA.
Some of them have worked with them for 20 years and understandably just distraught over this incident.
Colleagues remembering Andrew Hong as a hardworking officer and loving family man who always had a smile on his face. The constable ambushed and killed at a Tim Hortons in Mississauga. Plus,
it's a great loss to the community, not just to the family. The family is just going to be broken. I mean, there's no question about that.
Mourning the loss of Shakil Ashraf, the husband and father of two gunned down in Milton at the auto repair shop he owned. And
it is an historic moment for both the Michelin Guide and Toronto.
Drum roll, please. Toronto becomes the first Canadian city to be featured in the Michelin Guide. Which restaurants made the cut? The CN Tower lit up in blue tonight to honor the Toronto police officer shot and killed while having lunch in Mississauga yesterday. Police describing the attack as an unprovoked ambush. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Constable Andrew Hong was a 22-year veteran of the Toronto Police Service, assigned to a highly specialized motorcycle unit. He was in Mississauga taking part in a joint training exercise with Peel officers when he was shot and killed. Today, we're learning more about the circumstances surrounding his death as his family mourns the loss of a beloved husband and father. Lorena Redekop has more.
We're seeing that outpouring of support for Constable Andrew Hong here at the scene. And now we're hearing from his family. In a statement, they say they've been overwhelmed with love and support. They're also telling us more about him. They say Andrew was magnetic. They say he loved being part of the Toronto Police Service, that he was a practical joker and got along with everyone. They say his absence has left a gaping hole in the hearts of his family and all who knew him. At the scene of yesterday's deadly ambush attack, a growing memorial for the officer killed, Toronto Police Constable Andrew Hong. This woman says they were close.
I live in the area too. I just had to come, say a prayer.
She says another friend called and gave her the news.
They say he's been shot and he's dead, and you don't think that the guy's coming here to grab a bite to eat, and he's ambushed like that. He never had a hope in hell.
Others didn't know Constable Hong, but are heartbroken, feeling for his family. He leaves behind a wife, two teenage children, and his parents.
So just knowing that their dad's not going to be home tonight and ever, it shudders me.
I'm actually speechless for the first time in my life, speechless. And I want these families to understand that we are here for them. And I wanted to leave those flowers so they know that this is just not something we're going to forget.
We've learned that yesterday, Constable Hong was in Mississauga for joint motorcycle training. He was teaching others. Some of the Peel fire and police officers who came to the scene today were part of those exercises.
Our folks would have said good morning, would have had a coffee, would have had a few laughs with them. And when they left for lunch that day, there would have been no thought in their mind that somebody was not coming home that day.
Guard 2 are fallen. Salute!
Today, Toronto's police chief, who was at the scene last night, visited Constable Hong's colleagues at Traffic Services.
Some of them have worked with them for 20 years and understandably just distraught over this incident. We're going to have to continue to support our membership and the family in the days to come.
John Reid, the head of the Toronto Police Association, notified Hong's family of his death yesterday afternoon, together with Chief Raymer.
Probably one of the most difficult conversations I've had to have. And obviously the family was devastated with that news. And he always had a smile on his face. There's always a gentleman. You know, the members that know him really well will tell you what a fantastic police officer he is, and a genuinely great person, a great family man.
We expect to learn much more about Constable Hong in the days to come. A full police funeral is expected. Reid says it will likely take place around the middle of next week. He says the other thing that will help bring closure to family is learning more about what exactly happened yesterday and why. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Mississauga.
We're also learning more about the other man shot in Mississauga yesterday. Now, he survived. CBC Toronto reached his family today. We also spoke to a witness who saw the shooter in the Tim Hortons parking lot. Tyler Cheese reports.
Confusion and shock followed a sudden act of violence outside this Tim Hortons yesterday. One eyewitness says it took a moment to register what was happening.
I was outside loading my 11-month-old in the car when the shooting actually took place. I found out what the suspect looked like after the fact, after it was posted, and realized that he was standing in the parking lot when I got there because he was wearing the bright yellow construction vest. I went into the Marshalls for maybe 15-20 minutes, not that long, and I came out and I was parked like facing the Tim Hortons, and it had started to rain, and the black Jeep Cherokee left.
We still don't know very much about the second victim who was shot here in Mississauga, but I have been in touch with his sister. She said it was his vehicle that was carjacked by the shooter and that he was shot in the process, but the extent of his injuries are still unknown at this time. Belmonte says the emergency response was swift.
Literally within 5 to 10 minutes of that vehicle leaving, we had an ambulance show up, 2 police officers, and a fire truck. And then you can just hear more police coming. I have never seen that many police attend a spot that quickly. They were coming from literally every direction.
The shooting has Belmonte second-guessing the safety of the places she goes every day.
I'll go back, but maybe not right now. You know, it's still kind of like, it's made me a little bit more uneasy and more cautious.
She says she's grateful that she and her son were able to make it home safely. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, in Milton, where the shooting continued, a community is mourning the loss of a husband, father, and a well-known local business owner. Shaquille Ashraf was shot and killed at the auto mechanic store that he owned. And we're learning tonight the killer was a former employee. And Greg Ross has more.
Shaquille Ashraf's auto repair shop remained closed today, but that didn't stop customers and former employees from coming to pay their respects, many leaving flowers and gifts.
He was really a good person, and he didn't deserve this.
Omar Ahmed says he worked at the shop last year. He says Ashraf was a great boss.
He was always joyful and always smiling.
Not far from the shop, cars lined the street outside the home of Ashraf, where family and friends gathered today, still in shock. Many of them tell us that Ashraf's ties to the Milton community run deep.
He was definitely a person who always comes with a problem and issues. You have some auto body work. he is there to, help you out. So that is one of the things which everybody likes him and loves him, to keep coming back and forth.
Always helping the community, always helping the people out of way, helping if they need some money, if they need some, let's say I need a car for 2 days, they ready to help them out.
Details surrounding yesterday's shooting are still not entirely clear. But Ashraf's brother has confirmed that the suspected shooter, Sean Petrie, actually worked for Ashraf at the auto body shop last year for a few days.
What could be the motive? Motive is always, even in my work, I'm looking for in any and every given case. I just can't find a motive in this case.
Arslan Hanif is Ashraf's cousin. He says the suspect arrived at the shop while Ashraf was on lunch.
He was gone out to buy lunch for his employees, comes back, this individual is there, they had a little chat, and shortly after that he started shooting around. And he shot not just him and 2 other his workers, and everybody else ran. Luckily, they, survived.
Ashraf's brother also confirming to us that the other 2 victims here in Milton were employees at the auto repair shop. We're also told that Ashraf is survived by his wife and 2 young daughters, aged 10 and 12. We're told that the family is planning a funeral for Ashraf here in Milton tomorrow. Greg Ross, CBC News, Milton.
For all the latest developments on the investigation into yesterday's attacks, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. Let's go to Dahlia Ashry now with a first look at your forecast. And Dahlia, not as humid as it was yesterday, feeling a little more like fall today.
That's right, Kelda. Yesterday, it felt more like 30 degrees with that humidex. And today, not so much. It felt like anywhere between low to mid 20s, which is more of that fall-like temperatures, which is what we like to see if you like fall. We're also experiencing dry stretch over the next few days. Not raining like it was over the weekend and earlier today. The daytime high for Toronto, 21 degrees, Windsor 23, so a little bit warmer in Windsor. That is the warm spot for the region. Now, are we expecting any rain tonight? Earlier in the evening, we were, and then overnight, some periods of cloud, and that will clear up. But what we are definitely going to see is heavy winds because of that high pressure and the cold front coming through. So 31 kilometers an hour is the wind that's going to be gusting overnight tonight and going into tomorrow. It'll increase as well throughout the evening and going into tomorrow. Now, are we going to expect any rain? The answer to that is yes, but we'll get to that later on in the show tonight. It will cool down. 15 degrees tomorrow, 25. We'll have more on what the weather is going to look like over the next few days.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Dahlia. For the first time, a Canadian city is being featured in the prestigious Michelin Guide. Toronto can now boast to being home to more than a dozen Michelin star eateries, including a 2-star sushi restaurant run by a celebrated chef. Tali Ricci has more from tonight's big announcement.
It's one of the most coveted culinary maps, and now we know which Toronto spots are on it.
Michelin has been wowed by Toronto's extraordinary culinary landscape.
This year, undercover inspectors from France's Michelin Guide visited Canada for the first time. They decided one restaurant was worth 2 stars.
Restaurant Sushi Masaki Saito.
I love Toronto. I love Canada. Thank you.
Alo, Quetzal, and Don Alfonso 1890 are among the 12 eateries that received 1 Michelin star.
When Michelin has come to town and recognized us, it's recognized as a world-class city.
17 others were given Bib Gourmands, which recognizes great food at a great value.
Being part of the Michelin Guide is a real achievement. You know, being a star means that you are part of the crème de la crème, you know, the very best restaurants according to the quality of the food.
It's a designation that can propel a chef and their restaurant to stardom. And some here tonight say it comes at a good time.
This gives us something really exciting and new and distinct to talk about. So it's the right competitive advantage at the right time and really helps us distinguish Toronto at a moment when we really need to.
In the past, Michelin Guide has also been criticized with allegations of bias, elitism, and putting dangerous levels of strain on chefs.
It's kind of unfortunate that this list only covers a certain section of the city.
Food writer Suresh Das agrees the guide is great for tourism, but says it doesn't reflect the vast diversity of the city's culinary offerings.
There are a number of glaring omissions on that list. Obvious restaurants within city limits that are doing pretty amazing things that are worthy of a detour or a special trip. We have such a great local content scene. I don't think we need Michelin to tell us where to go eat in Toronto.
A sentiment that may resonate with a lot of Torontonians, but many were still happy to be a part of the moment tonight.
We opened 4 months back, and to be recognized and to be called on to cater to the event, I think that's a big thing for us. And just to be at Michelin, I mean, I think it's every person's dream, whoever is in the industry, to at least be recognized.
The new Toronto Guide will also include top hotel picks, and it's digital, so it'll be easy to update on a regular basis. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Trudeau has announced a federal holiday for this coming Monday, the day of the Queen's funeral.
We have also chosen to move forward with a federal holiday on Monday. We will be working with the provinces and the territories to try and see that we're aligned on this. There are still a few details to be worked out.
Federal employees and workers in federally regulated industries will be eligible for the Monday holiday. Provinces are making their own decisions about whether their employees, such as teachers, will get the day off. Here in Ontario, Premier Ford says the province will mark the day as a provincial day of mourning, which means you will not get the day off unless you are a federal government employee. Welcome back. An Uxbridge woman has launched a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against a former teacher, alleging that she was subjected to years of sexual assault and abuse. She says fear and shame had kept her from speaking out, but she is ready now to tell her story. Farah Morali has more.
This one's from Nationals.
Julia Kearley sifts through keepsakes from her time as a high school track star. They are memories that are etched with scars.
He definitely used running, I think, as like a way to kind of control and have that manipulation, because I loved running. I would do anything for it. I wanted to be the best I could.
In a civil suit, the 25-year-old claims her former teacher, Edward LaRocque, took an interest in her as a runner, inviting her to join a running club outside of school. She claims he regularly drove her to practice. It began, she says, with sexual touching. Then at age 16, she says, he started driving her to his house, where she says he sexually abused her.
So it was like 2 times a week. It would happen before races, sometimes like at hotels. Some of the abuse happened at the high school, so it was kind of just like every facet of my life and every place, really, that it was happening. Yeah, it was just a lot. My running suffered, crying a lot, having issues sleeping, but on the other hand, I think I like made this unconscious decision that it couldn't be that. Like, if I admitted that it was abusive and that this person was abusing me, that would just be like too much to handle.
Kearley says the abuse continued even as she started university, where she got a scholarship for running. She says it wasn't until 2020, 3 years after she says she was able to cut him off from her life, that she started coming to terms with what had happened.
That was probably the darkest time of it all, like even more than high school. Like, just so, like, to admit that that happened to yourself, like there's just so many emotions, like pain, sadness, anger that came with it.
The civil suit names LaRocque and the Durham District School Board and is seeking $2 million in general and aggravated damages, plus an additional $1 million in special damages. Kearley has not filed a criminal complaint.
It's scary. You hear a lot of stories of victims coming forward and them just getting like absolutely traumatized by the system, and I wasn't in a place emotionally, mentally where I think I could take that. So I felt like with the civil route, I had someone advocating for me. I felt protected.
We have to understand that people need to come forward at their own time.
Experts say shame, stigma, and the legal process prevent some survivors of sexual assault from filing police complaints.
You'd have the trauma of being abused, and then you'd have the trauma of not being believed. And the fear itself of the potential of that is terrifying.
The Durham District School Board denies the allegations and said in part in an emailed statement it first learned of them through the civil suit. It said LaRocque has been removed from duties. The matter is before the court, and he will be responding to these allegations there. As for Julia, she says she's sharing her story so others don't have to go through what she says she went through.
I just feel like now I'm at a place where I want accountability. I don't want to carry the shame anymore.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
The Queen's coffin has arrived in London and has been transported to Buckingham Palace.
Royal salute. Present arms.
The coffin was flown from Scotland to the Northolt Air Force Base on the outskirts of the British capital, accompanied by the Queen's daughter, Princess Anne. That was followed by a vehicle procession to Buckingham Palace, met by King Charles and the Queen consort, Camilla. The Queen's coffin will remain at the palace overnight before being moved to Westminster Hall to lie in state. Now, mourners will have a chance to view the coffin before the Queen's state funeral on Monday. You are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, mostly clear tonight and staying clear overnight. Currently, it is just 17 degrees in the city. Let's go back to Dahlia now with a look at your long-range forecast. And Dahlia, I'm a fan of the fall, so I am enjoying these cooler evenings.
Well, Kelda, I'm glad to hear that you like fall, and then by the evening you can enjoy something warm, especially on those cooler nights, which we will have over the next few days, and a dry stretch. Now, we are sitting more on those seasonal temperatures for fall, but we're also sitting a bit above that compared to what it was like the past few years. Actually a little bit warmer than where we're supposed to be. So we're around that range, but also a little bit more on the warmer side, especially with those dry stretches that we're going to be experiencing over the next few days. The daytime high in Toronto, 21 degrees, a little bit cooler in Barrie and Kitchener, and a little bit warmer there in Windsor, 23 degrees. Now, are we expecting any rain? We'll get to that in a bit, because first, I'd like to talk about the windy conditions we're going to be experiencing overnight today and going into tomorrow as well. So 11 o'clock, so around this time right now, 31 kilometers an hour are the winds, and it's going to slowly increase around 2 a.m. It's going to increase to about 43 kilometers an hour. And then as you go to work tomorrow and you're dropping off the kiddos to school, it will still be pretty windy. 39 kilometers an hour is where the winds are going to be gusting. It'll start to slow down by Wednesday afternoon, 27 kilometers an hour. And we're going to see it slow down throughout the rest of the day. And then by the evening, it'll be very windy, 46 kilometers an hour. So expect some windy conditions over the next few days. Now, as for the rain, mostly it's going to be clear skies tomorrow. Like we were talking about, those dry conditions over the next few days because of that high pressure giving us those clear skies. And that's what we like to see, that sunshine during the day. But I can't say the same thing overnight. And then when we fast forward to Friday, there is a chance that we will be seeing some scattered showers. As for tonight, temperatures will drop to 15 degrees. Partially cloudy, and then same thing in Hamilton, 12 degrees. Now let's look at what it's going to look like over the next few days. That dry conditions that we've been talking about, look at that, beautiful double digits, but tomorrow, single digit. So it's going to be very cold tomorrow night, 7 degrees by the evening and pretty windy. Winds will be gusting 26 kilometers an hour. So prepare those sweaters and maybe drink some pumpkin spice lattes.
Thanks so much, Dahlia. Canadian filmmaker Sarah Polley is back at TIFF with a new movie. Women Talking is an adaptation of the book by Canadian author Miriam Toews about a secluded religious colony dealing with sexual abuse. Polley says she made the return to directing just to make this film.
The idea of telling this story is what brought me back to filmmaking. I mean, I wasn't sitting around looking for another project to direct, but I felt there was an urgency to this story being told on a big canvas. And reaching as many people as possible.
The film has a star-studded cast featuring Rooney Mara and Claire Foy, both of whom attended tonight's premiere at the Princess of Wales Theatre. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.